Okay. Good morning to everybody. I am Dr. Vilasarao Gorupade, SGM College, Karad. Today we will discuss about downstream processing. So once the fermentation is over, the question comes how to recovery of the product is carried out. So recovery of the product is very important because that determines the cost of the product. So when the fermentation, once it is over, from the growth medium, it should be purified, it should be processed, and it should be packed in the equal efficiency, and the economy of the product of the recovery and the purification is called as a downstream processing. Means you have to purify with the equal efficiency, because efficiency should not be deteriorated with the product. That is very important. Second one, why we should carry out the downstream processing, that is the question. Because downstream processing is carried out because the manufacturer has to produce the product in the refined form. It should be a pure form, because generally the microbes are there, that microbes are generally produce the product in a very little amount, and the stability of the product is very important. So downstream processing is very important, and here with minimum cost you have to obtain the maximum product should be obtained. So that's why downstream processing is very important for nowadays and in the fermentation industry. Now what type of downstream processing should be carried out? That is different from different industry to industry, because the type of fermentation which is used in industry, they are quite different. Say for example, batch fermentation is there, second batch fermentation, dual and multiple fermentation is there. So that's why whatever the downstream processing is used for batch fermentation, that is not applicable for the continuous fermentation or the other fermentations. So that type of fermentation determines what type of methodology should be used for the downstream processing. That is the one. So second one is physical and chemical properties of the product is very important. That should not be deteriorated with the process. So that's why the determination of the process is based upon the physical and chemical properties of the product. This is one. Second one, we have to, whatever unwanted material is there, that should be removed. The material is there, that byproduct should be removed, that is a contaminant. Second one, the product concentration, how much concentration of the product is there in the fermentation broth, that is also important. Product location is also important. If the product is produced outside the cell, or whether the product is produced inside the cell, that is also very, that determines the what type of method should be chosen. Next one, a scale up of operation, how the scale we can do the operating. Second one, waste treatment portion, question of the waste treatment even, and the last one is the product stability and the desired specification. I want 98% of the desired specificity purification should be purified product should be required. So that's why product stability is also important. You might have been knowing that every drug there is an expiry date. So what is this expiry date? You know that expiry, after that the stability of the product will be loosed. So that's why this is very important to determine what type of the fermentation process, downstream processing is to be carried out. Now this is a simple separation process of the bacteria. You can separate the blood cells, very simple process is there. Just see this one. What is this? Is expected desired, this one, and that can be separated with the simple separation methods they are used, and this desired product is taken outside. Now there are many challenges are available in downstream processing. What type of process should be used for the manufacturer when once the fermentation and the fermentation is over? That is only one, the bacteria which produce, that is if there is a low concentration of the product, then the question comes, that is one of the challenge, because if you see the enzyme produced by the bacteria, very little amount of the enzyme is produced by the bacterial cell. This is one, this is the first challenge. But even though these are the challenges are there, that we can overcome by these challenges. This is one. Second, large number of impurities. Now you might have been knowing 1000 liters of the fermented broth, we are getting the 10 milligrams of the enzymes. So that's why the large number of impurities should be removed from the fermentation and the product, whatever it is, whether it is a thermostable or thermoliable, that is very important, because most of the processes which is used for this process, these are not the thermosensitive, because they are generating high amount of the heat. So that's why thermoliability of the product is very important. If there is more generation of the heat and the product is deteriorated, it's no use of the downstream processing. Now, this is a simple method how downstream processing is carried out. These are the microbes. They are genetically modified, and once these are genetically modified, they are used for the industry. And once it is used for industry, they are happily grow in the fermentation tanks, because they are full of nutrients are there, oxygen supply is there, everything is there. They grow, they produce the product. That is, for example, drug they have produced. Now my question is that out of this, how to drug should be extracted? That is called as a downstream processing. Just say that downstream processing. What is this? First you have to kill the microbes. Once you kill the smash the microbes, because the antibiotic should be smashed, it should be come into the, so remove the cell debris, then you concentrate and purify the product, then you formulate the product, and afterwards you can sell the product in the market. This is the basic idea about the downstream processing. Now every step you can use the different methodology for the separation. Now if you see that alcoholous beverage, so what I told for the preparation, whatever you are using for the fermentation industry, there are different types of the processes can be used. A same process cannot be applicable for all fermentation. Now this is the best example. Say for alcoholic beverages, beers, wine and spirit, what we are using, the clarification and the distillation process. These are the very simple processes. It is not high-end process. But similar way, when you are extracting the enzymes and the polysaccharide, you have to go for filtration, you have to go for precipitation, centrifugation, adsorption and the chromatography. So these are the high-end processes. The cost of the production of the enzyme or in the downstream processing increase the cost of the product. But same is not applicable in alcoholous beverages, because you can use a clarification and the distillation. Similar way, organic acid is there, vitamin is there, amino acids is there, antibiotics are there. So basically there are different types of the methods are used for purification of the product. So downstream processing is not the single processing process, because different methodology, they are bunched together and they can be used for the purification of the product. Now, this is the basic distillation means what? It's the separation of the component depend upon the different volatilities. So you can separate the product, the organic solvent and the volatile solvent. By using that, you can separate the product after the fermentation. So this is the basic structure what you are using in the laboratory. So same cannot be used in the industrial scale, because the quantity what we are expecting the product is coming in the market is a very large scale. So this is the principle, whatever the principle what you are using in the lab, same principle you use in the industry. Just see that it is in big way. This is the operation distillation column is there, condenser is there, reflux electrolysis is there. You carry out the distillation and at the bottom you can take the product. So here also these vapors are going out and distillation column flow is there. There is no simple distillation what we are carrying in the laboratory that cannot be used here. So that is a very big way they are using. Now what is the stages of downstream processing? Whenever you are using filtration methods, you can use crystallization method. Whatever methods you are using, there are basic 4 methods are there. First you have to remove the insolubles. Insoluble material which is produced there after the fermentation, that should be removed. This is what? Product isolation. Whatever desired product we are expecting desired product, that should be isolated. And third one is product should be purified. And once this product is purified, it should be polished. Unless it should be polished, it cannot be sold in the market. Either it should be a crystalline form, or either it is a liquid form. It should be polished and then it is marketed by the industries. Now, how to remove the cells? Now, cell can be removed by the filtration methods, centrifugation, coagulation, flocculation. Coagulation and the flocculation, they are quite different. So that's why cell removal is not that much easy, because the bacteria which are using it is too small. So that's why the different methodology can be used, because we can use for the filtration of a simple filtration methods are used by the industries. They cannot go for the membrane filter and all immediately, because the amount, whatever amount is there, it is too high, so you cannot use the membrane filter at the same time. So simple filtration method, you can remove the cell. This is one. Second, the primary isolation, adsorption and the precipitation you can carry it out, because you have to remove the impurities without disturbing the property of the desired product. That is very important. You cannot remove the desired product's property. That is very important. You can use the different product and you can use the large volume is very important, and because of the large volume, very simple methodology can be used, because that increase the cost of the product, because you have to reduce the cost in the fermentation and the extraction process. Now next comes the purification. Once you remove the insoluble water, purification, so high-end equipments are required for the purification. You can use the high-end methodology for the purification, but this methodology cannot be used in initial stage, because if you use in the initial stage, it increase the cost and the burden on your economy and the product cost. If the product cost is more, now the question comes, who will purchase that product in the market? Now this is very important. So chromatography and ultrafiltration methods are used. You can remove the component with the properties similar to those of the product. Means a desired product should be removed at all. And it is a highly selective method which is used, that is you are knowing with the chromatography and the ultrafiltration methods. And afterwards you can polishing the product, because product preparation is crystallization, you can carry it out, you can dry this one, and this is one. Now how to remove the insolubles which are present in this fermentation? After the fermentation over, there is insoluble material is there that capture the product in the solute, a particulate free from the liquid. Means you have to remove this one with the help of capture it, with the help of some sort of solvent. So there should be some sort of precipitation that will be removed. For example, separation of cells, separation of cell debris, other particulate matter for the fermentation broth containing antibiotic. We are expecting to get the antibiotic, not the bacterial cell, after the fermentation. Our desired product is the antibiotic. So first you remove the bacterial cell, then you will get the antibiotic. Now a typical operation, that is one filtration method. A mechanical filtration can be used for the separation of the liquids. Now this is one simple example is there. Just see that they can use in the industry. We cannot use the simple filter what we are using in the laboratory. That cannot be used, because very big amount is there. So big liter capacity is there. So that's why filtration method which is used for the industry, that is quite different from the laboratory. Now these are the types of the filter which is used. See this is very big filter. Slurry is added. There are bars. The filters are there, and filter is removed of this one. This big way they are carried out for the extraction of your product. Now this is a rotary drum vacuum filter. These are the different types of the filter can be used by manufacturers when they are extracting the product for the fermentation broth. Now next step is the centrifugation. Now you are well known with how the basic principle of the centrifugation works. Centrifugation, the basic principle is the centrifugal force which is acting towards the center. And you know that there are two types of the material. One is called as a non-dense material, and one is called as a dense material. This is the more the dense components are there, the material is there, they are always go away from the centrifuge. That is always from the axis, go away from the axis. And second one, a less dense material go towards the center to the axis. Now I will show you, this is a simple centrifuge which is used in the laboratory. See, this is a supernatant. These are the precipitate. So that's why it's a more dense material you can centrifuge in the laboratory. So it comes at the bottom. It is away from the center. So that's why this is one of the centrifuges, the basic centrifuge is used in the laboratory. Similar centrifuges are a very big way which is used in the industry. This is a decanter centrifuge, because a large volume is there, and when we are using the large discharge is there, light phase is there, discharge the gravity, heavy phase, you are using this all material, they are incorporated, because it is a 10,000 gallon capacity or more than that gallon capacity. We cannot go for in the laboratory scale. So that's why they are using in industry a very big way. This is decanter centrifuge is used. Second one, once you have centrifuged and you have removed the solid material, now the question comes how to carry out your product isolation. So this is coagulation and the flocculation. Now the basic difference between the coagulation and the flocculation is very important. What is coagulation? If there is a formation of lumps in the liquid, that is called as a coagulation. And the flocculation means it's a woolly cloudy like structure is formed at the bottom. Lumps are formed in between the layers. And second thing is flocculation is formed at the bottom. So this is the basic difference, and if you flocculation, if you say, it is a disordered manner, it's not a crystallized form. So that's why coagulation is quite different from the flocculation, because depending upon what type of material you are going to extract, that determines either you can carry out the flocculation method or either you can carry out the coagulation methods. Next, the product isolation. The product isolation is very important. You reduce the volume. First thing is that when you are extracting the product, after the fermentation, the volume is very big, and this volume should be reduced. So unless you reduce the volume, you cannot go for the desired product. So that's why reducing the volume of the material to be handled and the concentrating the product. So concentrate your product in the liquid and remove the big volume. Means you have to remove the undesired the product is very important. So that is called as a product isolation. Now precipitation, it's a very simple method. The formation of the solids in the solution during the chemical reaction. Now this is the best example. If you add the solution here, you add your suspension. Means this is what you call, this is your fermented broth, and this is your solution. If you add, then the supernatant will come here and the precipitation will come, because this suspension will react with your solution. That is a solid form called as a precipitate, and the liquid remaining above the solid is called as a supernatant. Means unless there is some sort of a reaction, chemical reaction, there will not be a precipitation. Now the question comes, what type of solution you use that increase the cost of your downstream processing. Second one, we can use the isoelectric pH method. Now most of the industry, they are using the isoelectric pH method. Now question comes, what is the isoelectric pH? Isoelectric pH is the pH where equal positive and negative charge are equal. Now this is the, just see this example, there GA have mentioned it is equal positive charge, equal negative charge is there, that is a 3.22, that is called as isoelectric pH. Here it is a minus charge, here it is a double minus charge, here it is a plus charge. Now can you say the equal positive charge and equal negative charge, that means it is a neutral? Absolutely no. Because the concept of neutrality of the product and the isoelectric pH is different. By using the isoelectric pH, the most of the industry, they use the isoelectric pH can separation of the product. And that is quite easy. So that's why you have to make the equal amount of positive charge and equal amount of negative charge. But this is not possible in case of neutral. So concept of neutrality and the concept of isoelectric pH is quite different. Now next, organic solvent precipitation. You can use the organic solvent in the aqueous fermentation. Whether you can use the water, that is called as aqueous solution. By using this aqueous solution, you can use the solvent, you carry out the precipitation of the your desired product by decreasing the solubility. For example, is the xanthan gum. This xanthan gum is very soluble in the aqueous solution. If it is soluble, again the cost of the recovery is increased, because again you go for the crystallization process. And no industrialist is interested to carry out the process more than many times for the purify the product, because that burdens the cost of the product. So that's why a xanthan gum is soluble in the aqueous solution. You can use the solvent and reduce the solubility of the xanthan gum, and you can isolate the xanthan gum and you can purify this one. Next one, insoluble salt precipitation. Usually used for extraction of amino acids. You all know that the amino acids are very little amount of amino acids are produced by the bacteria. Organic acids are produced by a very little amount. Insulin is produced by a very little amount by the bacterial cell. In this case, you can go for a salt precipitation. I will tell you best example of this, a penicillin. And penicillin, whatever you are getting in the market, it is a sodium benzyl penicillin, sodium salt of benzyl penicillin you are getting in the market. You are not getting the penicillin separated, it is attached with the sodium salt. This is very important. And next, for example, how you can carry out this one. For example, if you take the citric acid fermentation and you have to remove the citric acid from the bacterial cell, you have to heat the bacterial cell, that is a fermented broth. Once you are heated, because the citric acid is not synthesized outside the cell, you have to break the cell, it will come outside. And once citric acid comes outside, that should be neutralized by the calcium citrate. And once it is neutralization, I am using the term neutralization, I am not using the term as the isoelectric precipitation. Because you have to neutralize it. It's not an isoelectric pH. So after that, you have to, whatever citric acid is liberated, that can be acidified, and you will get the citric acid crystals. It is very important, and by using this you can separate. But even though this is true, there are many disadvantages. Now always the manufacturer is thinking how to reduce the cost of the purification. If you reduce the cost of the purification, the cost of the product which is selling in the market, it will come down. So one thing is that it is a high chemical cost. Many chemicals are used for the purification. So that's why chemicals are required more. Second one is complex technology should be used. Now every industrialist is expecting there should be a very simple technology. You can extract the product. If you high-end product, if you are extracting, that will be difficult for us. Now another one is ion resin, ion exchange resins. They are used for this one. What is a resin? They are organic or inorganic polymers which are having the cations and the anions. They are always used in the separation procedure because cathode and anions and the cations are there. They are what? They are functional groups. They are backbones. They are involved. They doesn't involve in the bonding. Now this functional group are for complex in anions and cations. So this is the basic anions and cations which is used for the fermentation industry. These are the organic resin. This is a linkage group. This is a cation exchange. This is a chloride. This is anion exchange. These are the basic groups which is used in industry for the separation process. For example, purification of the lactic acid from the fermentation broth. What you are doing? You are reducing the pH first. Remove the cations and remove the cations by using these cations and reduce the number of undesirable products. Then it is acidified with the help of ion exchange. Now this is a membrane separation. Membrane separation is also used in the downstream processing. Now you cannot use directly membrane separation because membrane separation is too costly. So that's why this is one clarification and the sterilization procedure. This membrane filter is used. Now what is the advantage of membrane? Is no phase change. You might have been knowing the liquid phase and the solid phase. There is no change in the phases. Second thing, it is a energy efficient. And third thing is the highly quality product is synthesized. Next, it is environmentally eco-friendly. And second thing is scale up is very easy to scale up this one. Now one thing, even though this is true that membrane filtration can be used, there are some sort of limitations for that. One is long-term reliability is not proven because once you synthesize or you purify the product with the help of membrane filter, long-term stability will not be expected. So that's why there is a limitation for this. And for this, excessive treatment should be given to the product, and afterwards you can go for the membrane separation. And the concentration and the polarization and membrane falling. And second thing is replacement of the membrane. You have to replace the membrane frequently. That increase the cost of your product, and that increase the cost of your downstream processing. Now this is one example of membrane fraction technologies. So this is, you can use the reverse osmosis method, and by using the reverse osmosis method you can carry out this one. So this is, you can use reverse osmosis. You can use nanofiltration, so you can use ultrafiltration also. Your reverse process, protein and microbes and the fats are separated. They are not coming in reverse osmosis and here, and the microfiltration. By using this filtration method, you can carry out the separation of your desired. You can use the reverse osmosis process, and that is a common reverse osmosis. You might have the osmosis process because everybody is using the filter at home. And you are knowing that the filter ultrafiltration, this is used for the juice concentration, because you might have been knowing the water is removed from the juice and whatever the solid form of the juice is coming in the market, that is called as a dehydrated product. Now you might have been knowing dehydrated soups are coming, vegetable soups are coming by using this reverse osmosis process. And you can use, because pore size is very small, then only the nutrients are coming outside and the water is remain outside. By using reverse osmosis you can separate the product. Now the best example is wine. You are knowing the wine, it is called as an appetizer. And wine is generally produced by the grapes. Many of the foods are used for the preparation of the wine. Wine and the liquor is quite different, because wine contains the liquor does not contain the wine. That is very important. So basically there are different filtration, and the aging of the wine is very important. If the aging is more than the days, the good quality of the wine is generated. Now you have to remove the insoluble and the contaminants, because naturally it is a fermentation. Only you are using the juice and you are using the yeast cells. There is no, and the natural color of the skin of the grapes gives the color to the wine. So maximum impurities are there, and that can be improved, clarity, brightness, and you have to extend the cell life. You have to go for the filtration method, and the filtration is most acceptable method in the wine preparation. No other method can be used, because the cost, they can reduce the cost of the wine. Second one is the electrodialysis. This is a high-end dialysis process which is used for the separation of the product. Just see the example of this electrodialysis. Here is the anode, this is a cathode, and wine is added this. The excess amount of this calcium plus, this is K minus, this is K plus, sorry, this is K plus, this is tartarate, this is tartarate, this is tartarate. So they are moving towards the cathode, they are moving to the anode. So that's whatever wine clarification is carried out in this chamber with the help of electrodialysis. The cost of the electrodialysis is more than the cost of your product. So that's why this is not affordable. So the people are very limited extent when they are expecting the high-end product. That time they are using the electrodialysis. Now the question comes, once the product is purified, it should be polished, it should be marketable, it should be a dresser. So polishing is very important. Unless you cannot polish, it cannot be sold, because it is called as a raw product. This is not the raw product. Once your fermentation is over, you have purified the product, it should be sold to the market. So that's why product polishing should be carried out. That is, what is the product? A final processing step which end with the packaging of the product and the form stable and transportable and the convenient. Now this is very important. The product stability is very important. You might have been knowing the expiry date on the medicine, you might have studied, and after the expiry date the medicine cannot work. So that's why stability is very important. And second thing is, it should be easily carried out from one place to another place. That is, a transportable is very important, and it should be a convenient. This is very important. So that's why many of the people go for crystallization. Many of the people go for the concentration of the product. Many of the people, they go for the drying of the product. So crystallization is the formation of the crystal phase from the parent phase. The best example is salt preparation. You might have been knowing the salt preparation. If you take the salt water, the evaporation is carried out, whatever remains, that is called as a salt. It is one of the oldest, most important unit of the operation, extraction of salt crystal from the seawater. Now what is the definition of the crystal? There is a big difference between the amorphous and the crystals. Now what is crystal? Crystal constitute the atom and the molecules or the ions. It is packed in the regular order, repeating three-dimensional structure. But if you see the amorphous, there is no ordered three-dimensional structure, no repeating units. So there is a large distance between this one. So crystals are more attractive than the amorphous substance. Now, how the crystallization process, if you take the liquid mixture, after the fermentation, you are having the liquid. Once you purified the liquid mixture, you have to go for crystallization. So, generation of saturation of the divine force. What is a supersaturation? That we will see next slide. That is a nihilation of the birth of the solid phase, crystal growth, and the final product. Now, what is supersaturation? So, refers to the state of liquid contain more dissolved solid than the liquid. Now, I will tell you best example of that. Jaggery is a super saturation of the crystals. Sugar, if you take the sugar, sugar is called as a crystal, and jaggery is called the super saturation of the crystals. So that is the end, because water part is raw, and whatever that liquid solvent is contain more dissolved solid, and that is accumulated at the different temperature. Next, what is super saturation? First, solvent evaporation is carried out. After solvent, solution should be cooling, or you can alter the pH of this one. Now this is a crystallization process. So what is this evaporation? Is a very simple process we can use in the laboratory. That is, cold solution is there, filter paper if you keep, and if you keep for the slowly room temperature, at room temperature, that will form the crystal. The best example, if you take the phenol liquid and if you keep it for many days, you will get the crystals of this. Now this is cooling saturated solution, hot concentrated solution. You keep the thermometer and cool slowly, you will get the crystals of this one. Now concentration, by using filtration methods, you can concentrate the material, you can use the centrifugation which you can centrifuge it and reduce the pressure concentration, you can go for that. And last one is the drying. Drying involves the transfer of heat wet material into removal in the moisture, and the vapors can be removed, you can get dry it. And second, usually the most performs such as contain biological activity of the product. But one thing, while drying, the biological activity of the product should be maintained as it is, because the stability of the product is very important. You continuously go on drying, the question of stability of the product is coming in the question. Now drying methods, you can use the atmospheric drying methods, you can use the vacuum drying, you can use the freeze drying, you can use the spray drying. These are the different methods. And if you salt, they are using for the atmospheric drying method. So that's why the salt is so cheaper than the other film material. Now lyophilization is there. Lyophilization, that is called as a freeze drying. Means at 0 temperature or reduced temperature, you can dry the material. Now best example, if you keep something in the freeze for many days, it will dry. So reducing the surrounding pressure and adding to some heat, allow the frozen material and semen directly for the solid phase and the gas. Now, thank you. किती वेळ झालं सर?